My ex taught me to quit drinking and find God. I thought he ghosted me after my coma until he showed up as the priest at my wedding. When I met him, I was drowning. Before I met Gabriel, I wasn't living. I was surviving. The kind of surviving that looks normal on the outside. Smiles, social media posts, parties. But inside, I was crumbling. I drank too much. I slept too little. I'd chase highs and ignore the lows until they wrapped around my ankles like chains. People said I was fun, the life of the party, but truthfully, I was just trying to outrun myself. Every night, I felt like I was running out of road. My faith? Gone. Lost somewhere between broken promises and empty bottles. God felt like a story I once heard as a child. Something soft and safe, but far away now, unreachable. And then came Gabriel. It wasn't some fairy tale meet cute. I was outside a community center, hungover, chain smoking, trying to figure out whether I could stomach walking into a recovery meeting. I hadn't even decided yet when he sat down on the bench beside me. No words, just a quiet presence. Like he knew not to speak yet, like silence could be kinder than questions. Eventually, I muttered something like, "You here for the meeting too?" He smiled. "Yeah, I come every week. Helps keep the noise down." The noise. That struck me because I knew exactly what he meant. The noise of guilt, shame, the static of past mistakes playing on repeat. Over the next few weeks, he became familiar, a calm voice in the chaos. He never pushed, just sat beside me after meetings, walked me to my car, listened. Slowly, I learned that he used to study theology, that he left the seminary years ago, unsure if it was really his path. But the way he spoke about God, it wasn't with preachiness or pride. It was like he was describing someone he knew, someone who'd been with him during his own wreckage. One night, after a rough session, I asked him, "Do you really think God listens to people like me?" He looked me dead in the eye and said, "He's been listening to you this whole time. You just weren't quiet enough to hear him." That night, I didn't drink. And the next day, I called my mom for the first time in a year. And 2 weeks later, Gabriel and I went for coffee. And I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in what felt like forever. He never tried to rescue me. He didn't give me answers. He just showed up, day after day, with patience and peace. We started spending more time together. I'd find excuses to text him. He'd send me little Bible verses, not the heavy kind, just ones about hope, about light. We'd go on long drives. He'd play music I'd never heard, gentle, acoustic songs with lyrics that made me want to cry. It wasn't fast. It wasn't fireworks. It was something deeper, something slow and certain, like stepping into warm water after a storm. One night, while watching the stars from the hood of his car, I reached over and took his hand. He didn't flinch, just laced his fingers through mine like they belonged there. "I think I'm falling in love with you," I whispered. He looked at me, not surprised, not scared, and smiled. "I've been praying that you'd find love again," he said. "I just didn't expect it to be with me." And from that moment on, we were us. We talked about marriage, slow Sunday mornings, maybe even a family one day. We talked about building a life away from the city, maybe by the sea. He told me he hadn't felt called back to the priesthood in a long time, that maybe God's plan for him wasn't behind a pulpit, but beside someone, beside me. For the first time in my life, I felt safe, like I had found the place I'd been running toward all along. But life isn't a fairy tale, and just when I thought I had finally arrived, it all slipped through my fingers. The night before the accident was peaceful. Gabriel and I had gone on one of our long evening drives through the countryside. We stopped at this quiet ridge overlooking a field of wild grass, the kind of place only locals knew. I remember leaning my head on his shoulder, the soft hum of the car engine in the background, and telling him how lucky I felt. "I think God knew what he was doing when he sent you," I said. He laughed. Not out of disbelief, but something gentler, more reverent. "If he did," he said, "I hope I don't mess it up." That was the last time we were together. The next morning, I had errands to run. A friend had asked me for a favor, pick up something from her apartment across town. It was raining. I remember the roads being slick and visibility low. I remember the music playing in the car, something soft, something that made me feel safe. Then I remember the blur of headlights and silence. When I woke up, I couldn't move. Everything hurt. My body, my chest, my throat, tubes, beeping, bright hospital lights that didn't feel real. My mother was beside me, face crumpled with relief and exhaustion. I asked what happened, but my voice cracked like it hadn't been used in ages. She looked at me like I was a ghost. "You've been gone for almost 7 months," she whispered. 7 months. The weight of that hit me like another car. I wanted to scream, cry, call someone, call him. But the only thing I could do was breathe. The days blurred. Nurses, therapy, slow walks down hallways. I started asking about Gabriel the moment I could speak again. My mother looked confused. "We tried reaching out to him," she said, "but no one could find him. His number was disconnected. He wasn't at his apartment anymore." At first, I thought, maybe he was grieving. Maybe he couldn't bear the hospital. Maybe he was scared. But as the days passed and he didn't come, the hope I clung to started unraveling. I messaged him, emailed, called. I even wrote letters. Nothing. Gone. It hurt more than the coma, more than the accident. Because he promised me forever. He told me God was listening. But when I needed him most, he disappeared. The nurses said I cried in my sleep for weeks. I believed them. Eventually, I stopped trying. I told myself he moved on, that he couldn't handle it, that I was a chapter he'd closed. It took me a year to get my body strong again. Another year to try to live without constantly looking over my shoulder for a sign of him. Therapy helped, my mother helped, but there was always a Gabriel-shaped hole in the room. Then I met Ethan. Sweet, steady, predictable, a dentist, kind to my mother, respected my boundaries, never tried to fix me. He knew I had scars, emotional and physical, and he never once made me feel ashamed of them. When he proposed after 2 years of dating, I said yes. Not because I didn't still feel the ghost of Gabriel in my chest, but because I couldn't keep waiting for someone who never intended to return. I was 29. I wanted stability, family, peace, and Ethan could give me that. Planning the wedding was bittersweet. My heart wasn't on fire, but it was steady. And sometimes, steady is enough, or so I told myself. My father offered to handle the priest, said he had contacts at a local seminary, and they'd send someone down for a small fee. I didn't ask questions. At that point, I just wanted the day to come and go. I never expected him. I never expected Gabriel. The morning of the wedding was calm. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my veil. My dress was simple. Satin, ivory, delicate lace on the sleeves. My mom was fussing over my train. My bridesmaids were laughing, sipping champagne, and I was just floating, like I was in someone else's life, playing a part. There was a strange quiet in my chest. Not nerves, not panic, just stillness. I told myself that was a good thing. When it was time, I took my father's arm, stepped out of the bridal suite, and walked down the aisle. And then I saw him, standing at the altar in white vestments. Gabriel, my Gabriel. I froze mid-step. My legs nearly gave out. For a second, I thought I was hallucinating. Maybe the nerves were finally breaking me. Maybe I hadn't healed as much as I thought. But no, he was real. Older, thinner, hair shorter, a soft beard now. But his eyes, those eyes were exactly the same. Gentle, focused. Like the world around him could fall apart and he'd still be anchored. Our eyes locked, and I saw it. The same shock, the same ache. He knew. He knew who I was marrying. He knew who I was. And still, he stood there. I made it through the ceremony on autopilot. My vows were shaky. My hands trembled in Ethan's, but I smiled. I nodded. I kissed. Gabriel never wavered, never flinched, just stood at the altar, delivering each line of the service like it was any other day. Until the last prayer. That's when I saw it. The flicker of emotion behind his composure, a crack in the calm. After the final blessing, while everyone clapped and the music played, I turned to my dad and whispered, "I need 5 minutes. Please cover for me." I found Gabriel alone in a hallway near the back of the chapel. He was sitting on a bench, head bowed, fingers laced in prayer. "Why?" My voice came out cracked, raw. "Why didn't you come back?" He looked up slowly. I saw the storm behind his eyes. "I wasn't supposed to," he said. "That's not an answer." "I made a promise," he whispered. I sank down beside him, still in my wedding dress, still shaking. "To who?" "To God," he said, like the words weighed more than anything he'd ever spoken. The night they told me you might not wake up, I prayed harder than I ever had in my life. I begged. I cried. I said, "God, if you heal her, I'll give myself fully. I'll return. I'll be yours again." He stared straight ahead like he couldn't bear to look at me. And then, you woke up. I swallowed the lump in my throat. You could have told me. I couldn't. I knew if I saw you, I wouldn't be strong enough to go through with it. I would have stayed and broken the vow. I wanted to scream. I wanted to sob. I wanted to tell him it was selfish, cruel, that I needed him, not just God, but I couldn't. Because deep down, I knew Gabriel had never been someone who made promises lightly. I looked at him, tears blurring my vision. "Do you still love me?" He smiled, small and sad. I never stopped. We sat there. Two people who once dreamed of forever, now sitting in silence between two worlds. I'm happy for you, he said quietly, nodding toward the chapel. You deserve this. A life. Peace. You look beautiful. And you, I said, trying to hold in my sob, you look like a ghost that still lives in my heart. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small worn piece of paper, a prayer card. The edges were frayed. I carried this every day, he said, pressing it into my palm. Wrote your name on the back. Prayed for you even when I couldn't be near you. My hand closed around it like it was the last piece of him I'd ever get to hold. He stood. I didn't. I'm glad you lived, he said, even if it wasn't with me. And then he walked away. Back into the church, back into his vows, back into a life I couldn't be part of. I rejoined the reception, smiled, danced, toasted, but somewhere deep inside, I knew. I didn't just marry Ethan that day, I also buried the future I once dreamed of. A future with a man who loved me so deeply. He let me go to keep a promise he made when I was unconscious. And every so often, when the house is quiet and the world is still, I take out that prayer card. I trace the letters of my name in his handwriting, and I whisper into the silence, I loved you too. If you like to watch more videos, please hit the subscribe button and notification bell.